Half an hour, but first it seems Big Brother is taking a gander at your groceries in 3D.
On 3D tonight, shaping the way we live, the multi-million-pound information business. The Davis family are classified as gentrified villagers. Fiona writes a studio single. Is this her true profile?
Mostly aged between 25 and 34. Oh, I'm flattered.
Good evening and welcome to 3D. We've all been asked to fill in one of these, a consumer survey. It's just one of the many ways in which information is gathered on all of us every day. The details are stored on computer databases and then sold to businesses who use it to shape our lives.
My guess is that people disclose unknowingly information, probably several times a day.
If you want to sell your privacy for smart points, air miles, vouchers or whatever, well, you do have a choice so long as you know that's what's happening.
I believe information is power, and I believe that information in the hands of powerful people can be misused and will be misused.
Information on our lives is big business. Held on huge databases, it's processed and stored perfectly legally by information companies. But how do they gather this information and why?
This is the headquarters for one of the world's largest information companies. They collect facts about your everyday life and sell them on to other companies. This gives them the lowdown on where we live, where we shop, and what we buy. Experian has information about every household in Britain. With just your postcode, they say they can provide a profile about the type of person you are.
They use a computer system called Mosaic. Using public data such as the census, they've created profiles about us according to the area we live in. They've split us up into 52 different groups.
Mosaic is a way of classifying postcodes according to the types of people who live in them. So essentially, there are over 1 million postcodes in the country, and we give to each one of those postcodes a code from 1 to 52, and that describes precisely what sorts of people live in that type of postcode.
What does your postcode say about you?
My name is Michael.
My name is Tendai.
My name is Farai.
My name is Lynn, and we live in Chapel Allerton in Leeds, and our postcode is LS7 3NW.
This postcode we classify as being suburban mock Tudor. Most of the young people who would have moved in the 30s will now be old. So typically you've got a lot of people who are approaching retirement.
Or are retired, not very many young people and children in young families. No, it's not true.
They might have worked as civil servants or
doctors or professors, so they've got plenty of money. They've also got plenty of time.
They spend a lot of time gardening.
They go to the theatre a lot.
And they're also very big takers of holidays, particularly saga holidays, for example.
You've got to be 50 to go on a saga holiday.
These people really have a very comfortable existence. So this is the sort of people we'd expect to find in that kind of postcode.
I don't think any of those things has ever occurred to us, have they?
I'm Roderick.
I'm Fiona.
I'm John.
I'm Sean.
And we live in Worcestershire, postcode WR9 0LL.
So what kind of thing do you think you could say about a person living in this postcode area?
Right, well, this postcode belongs in a category which we call gentrified villages, and these tend to be very beautiful villages in the countryside.
Containing a mixture of extremely well-paid or wealthy refugees from large cities and ordinary country people. Is that us?
Fairly.
Well, we're sort of country people now.
Very often they have wives who stay at home rather than go to work. The wives are very busy in the local community.
They wish to play an active role in the village life. Yes, they do, don't they?
Some of them.
Rather nice old houses with quite large grounds.
Conservatories and paved driveways.
They have big cars, estate cars.
Yes, state cars do, but paved driveways, you wouldn't have paved driveways around here. I think they look awful.
My name's Abby, this is Emily, and this is Sam, and this is our house in Bench Hill, Wythenshawe, M22 9WT.
This postcode belongs to a type which we call low-rise subsistence, and what we're talking about here is people who typically live in council housing.
I'm likely to have lots of children aged between 0 and 14. I've got 2, so I don't know if that counts as lots.
They're not usually very nice council estates, so they're not nice enough for people to want to buy them.
The area's fraught with problems, street crime, vandalism and unruly neighbours. Well, I've got smashing neighbours here. I've never had any problem with them.
A lot of people here don't have much money.
High numbers of single-parent families.
A lot of people who've got into financial difficulties.
I tend to have more than the average number of county court judgments registered against me. I'm not aware of any of them.
They watch TV a lot. They're very keen on soaps.
Not much reading books. If I could show you my bookshelves upstairs, I read a lot of books.
And if they get a mail shop, they'll be very excited by that.
I don't mind receiving it, but I don't bother reading a lot of it.
My name's Fiona Wright, and I live here in the Bow Quarter in East London. And my postcode is E32UP.
This postcode would belong to a category that we call studio singles, and we would expect
young singles and couples buying redeveloped property in London.
You'd have people with quite a lot of money.
Mostly aged between 25 and 34. Oh, I'm flattered. I think they've got that a little bit low.
They're in quite good careers where they're earning good money.
Marriage considerations are on the horizon. No, done it twice, decided not to do it again.
The flat would be quite modern.
They're likely to have their own TV and quality sound system. Yeah, mine cost 99 quid.
They usually don't have a lot of space at home.
This sector doesn't tend to keep too many large pets. Well, you couldn't in here. If you swung a cat round here, you get feline brain damage.
So, is it fair to assume a type of person based on where they live? And what is this information used for?
What we're doing here is not necessarily classifying people based on their own personal preferences, but we're classifying postcodes on the basis of the sorts of people who live there. And this is perhaps slightly less powerful for direct marketing, but it's much more useful to anybody such as a retailer who's trying to look at an area as a whole.
There's evidence in the United States and in continental Europe that whenever you use either census data or survey data to create, let's say, a mini profile, what they call a close grid profile of groups, you not only discriminate against those people in lots of different ways, investment in the community, creation of services for those people, but also you create a situation where there's a sort of disinclination to be different.
With Mosaic, they can look at an area and very quickly say, are the people who live around this shop, do they fit the categories which we know we can profitably trade with?
We spend over £50 billion in supermarkets every year. That's big business.
Supermarkets use information about us to locate their stores, identify what type of people we are and what they think we want to buy. We've checked out 2 supermarkets in London, one in Willesden Green, the other in upmarket Kingston upon Thames. Same stores, same size, very different areas.
Take Summerfield here in Willesden Green. What do they stock and why?
As you can see here, this is an interesting choice of position to cite this as the first item that you meet as you come into the store. Something as basic as potatoes, obviously on promotion, but it indicates the type of customer that the store is trying to serve. Here in the tin vegetable section, you'll see that we stock quite a few of these essential lines at a cheap price, at what we call our basic selection. Still fairly good quality, but more to suit people on a budget.
Well, to what extent then are you taking into consideration the income and possibly the lifestyle of the people that live around here?
Because this area is not massively affluent, that we would actually stock as many basic products here as we could.
The quantity of ready-made convenience meals here is actually quite small. It's smaller than I expected anyway.
When you get to the ready meals, it's a bit low on the type of variety we will be offering at Kingston.
How does this reflect the difference in the kind of person here and in Kingston?
Well, in Kingston we're serving a much more cosmopolitan type customer, more well-travelled, probably more affluent.
So once again, are you judging the people that shop here by the mosaic pattern?
Yes, absolutely, to a degree, yeah.
But here in Kingston upon Thames, things are slightly more upmarket.
According to Mosaic information, this supermarket is selling different food for a different type of person.
The first thing you come across when you come into this store is not sacks of spuds, but punnets of peaches. And video rentals. And for busy people like our studio singles, there's an extensive range of convenience goods. It feels different too. It's brighter, more airy and air-conditioned, and if you get tired, there's always the coffee shop.
In Willesden Green, we would cater more for a possibly budget-conscious customer, also to many of the ethnic groupings that live around Willesden. We would try and target our ranges accordingly. In Kingston, the situation is that there's more money about, people are more cosmopolitan, and the lifestyles dictate a different set of products.
It's been a concern of mine for some time that once you start profiling people by very specific areas, on the basis of lifestyle information, income information, educational information and housing data, you do introduce a new system of class.
A big problem at the moment in the area is that all the banks seem to be withdrawing from Wythenshawe, and we've only got 2 high street banks now left at Civic Centre, so the choice is really going down.
Abbey is classified as low-rise subsistence. What does this tell businesses about the type of services they should provide?
Well, these are not really adventurous people. They tend to buy basic products, potatoes, a lot of white bread, sliced bread, a lot of salt and vinegar, and they're not very big buyers of fresh vegetables or fresh fruit. Generally speaking, they're buying things that are fairly cheap, and they won't buy very much pasta or kind of more modern foods.
On the food, it's completely inaccurate. It says not overly bothered with pasta dishes. The potato is the main staple vegetable. I cook with potatoes about twice a month, and we live on pasta in this house.
And certainly you won't find them buying a lot from the ethnic food counter, if there is one at all.
To get all the products she wants, Abby regularly shops outside her area.
We've got some onion bhajis.
They're not
They
on the
weren't on the
list.
profile, were they?
That must be an exception, eh?
And pesto sauce. To the spaghetti, I think it said something about canned things, didn't it? So I guess I get a point for that one. Lots of fruit. Got some grapes there. And some apples.
Where are all the pork pies, the bacon and the sausage that you're meant to have?
Well, the sausages live in the freezer because I don't eat them often enough, and I hate pork pies. They're well off the mark. If they're telling my local supermarkets to stock based on this, then I'll never be able to get what I want.
Ultimately, what happens is you give people who have all the advantages even more.
Bow in East London is mainly a mixture of inner city towers and low-rise subsistence. In the middle of all this, the Bow Quarter offers studio singles an alternative lifestyle.
Now, Fiona, this is the shop that the residents of Bow Quarter can use. How is it different to shops elsewhere?
Oh, different produce altogether. All sorts of things that just aren't really available in the neighbourhood. Have a look at this.
Oh my goodness, Thai chicken sausages.
I know, it's fantastic, isn't it? Duck à l'orange.
Oh, duck à l'orange.
Yeah, and smoked trout, smoked goose. Yeah.
Even these soups are completely different to usual, aren't they?
Yes.
You don't get them in your average supermarket.
No.
You don't get anything in here in your average
No,
supermarket.
indeed, it's completely different, isn't it? Right, and here are the ice creams. Look at some of the flavours here. They're not your normal ones. We've got cardamom and cinnamon. These are ice creams for grown-ups, really, aren't they?
Mosaic information helps determine which products are available to us locally. So is this a matter of a few getting what they want and others getting what they're given?
If insurance companies, banks, supermarkets get information, it is used for the maximisation of profit. My own personal view is you've got to think very carefully about where people, just individuals, stand in that equation. And I don't believe they stand very well. I think that sort of information is used for the benefit of large organisations. The individual usually is subordinate.
I think they make assumptions both about what your income is and about what you're going to want to spend it on. And obviously it's worth targeting their resources because it's a waste otherwise, but unfortunately they're getting it so wrong.
This is our field.
John and Fiona live in a gentrified village. In rural Worcestershire, they're able to make choices.
Now, growing your own cattle, that's not normal. Is this a farm, effectively?
A sort of farm, a sort of small holding, I suppose you'd call it. But it's just a hobby for us.
They're quite cute as well. When we went to the show, you'd see Dexter's being shown, and they're very small and cuddly and nice. Nice steaks.
So why don't you just go down the butcher's and buy your own meat?
Oh, we'd like to know where it comes from.
Yeah, it seems expensive when you buy it. But if you've got a whole beast in the freezer, it keeps it going for quite a long time.
Mosaic profiles our lifestyles using public information such as the census or post office data. But companies also collect detailed personal information about individuals. Where does this information come from?
Every time you fill in anything with your name and address, potentially you're giving information. When you go into the supermarket and you use your loyalty card, you're giving huge amounts of information to the supermarket about what purchases you've made. Every time you apply for a credit card, every time you book an airline ticket, if you give a donation to a charity, perhaps even if you fill in a prize crossword and you send that off. These days it's been collected all the time. My advice to people would be to think about it every time you put your name and address, or even just your name down, or you give information over the phone. Think about where it's going on to, and do you really want to part with these valuable details?
Over 1.3 billion direct mail letters go out to British households every year.
I keep getting things asking me to be a hamper agent or a Christmas card representative.
We get invitations to come and have a look at the latest car, whatever it is.
A lot about financial planning.
Mobile phones.
Holiday brochures. Regrettably, I'm getting them from Saga now.
High flies.
Credit cards.
Credit cards, lot of credit cards, insurance.
The incredible money-making, money-saving, life-enhancing secrets the big boys don't want you to know about.
You might think letters like this are sent to you at random. Well, they're not. They land on your doorstep because companies have been told that you're their kind of customer. How do they know all this? You've told them.
Grouping us according to our postcode is just the tip of the iceberg. Information companies also want to know a lot of private details about us. Many of us offer this information freely without knowing how it will be used.
There are a lot of people in this country who are involved in the sending out of what are called lifestyle surveys. And most people would get at least one of these through the letterbox every year. And they ask you all kinds of questions about the products you buy and what sorts of newspapers you read and the television programs you watch. And they also ask you about things that you might be interested in buying which you don't yet have. So this kind of data is really private data which can only be used in a very restricted way to make offers to people through the mail which are sort of relevant.
It may come out of a magazine, it may come through the door. I would say be very wary of the things which come in brown paper envelopes and look like official surveys. They're not necessarily that, they're just capturing your marketing information.
I think perhaps if people knew how their data was used, they would be a little more discerning in the way they give out information.
So how do direct marketing companies know who to target? Your private details are available to any registered company at a price.
There's what's known as the list rental market. I mean, basically a company, after it's been in business a year or two, might decide, well, I've got a good list of customers' names and addresses here. I can cash in on this.
We very carefully vet all the companies that use the data legitimately to make sure that they're ethical companies and that they're ones who historically haven't abused the data that they've had access to.
Companies can have millions of customer names. These can be rented for around 20 pence each. A company renting out 1 million names would therefore make approximately £200,000.
And it can be a huge business. I mean, some years ago we took action against one company who were selling on names and addresses of customers, and they weren't telling customers this was happening. And it was something like 1/3 of the profits of this company were derived not from selling the goods, but from selling on the names and addresses of their customers.
The Countryside Alliance are currently under investigation by the Data Protection Registrar for selling on lists of their customers to the Conservative Party.
What we're looking at is whether when people signed up with the Countryside Alliance or its predecessors, whether they were clear that their information would be used for political activities to recruit them to political parties.
At the moment, when you fill a form in, you can look for a box, which is quite hard to find, and it's here. Now, by ticking this, you should stop your details being passed on to anybody else.
There's a new Data Protection Act coming into force later this year. I mean, at the moment, if you say to an organisation, don't send me any marketing materials, and that isn't, as I say, just by mail, it can be by phone, it can be by fax, it can be by email, then they have to comply with that. The new Act will make it that much clearer that that's a responsibility and make it easier for us to enforce.
But the future is electronic.
Every time you visit a website on the internet, the likelihood is that your data is being captured, you know, your email address. Every time you fill out some sort of form for product information on the internet, a whole lot of irrelevant questions are asked.
Loads of people use the internet now to buy things, whether it's books, CDs, clothes, food. And I'm filling in a form at the moment to make a purchase. They're asking for my name, my address, my daytime phone number, my nighttime phone number, my email address, my credit card details, my hobbies and interests. It's just like filling in a lifestyle questionnaire, except it's electronic. And depending on which website you're on, it could be worldwide.
In the United States, commercial entities rule the internet. There is virtually no law to stop them asking whatever they want. And it's a likelihood that 80% of sites are generated in the United States.
A lot of the marketing comes from the States. And that's true of the internet as well. What's more of a challenge for us is tracking down those who break the rules. If they are collecting your details but they don't have a notification, a notice of what they're going to do with it, then, well, who are they? Where are they based? It's easy to say what the standards are. What's hard is actually enforcing those.
We're now governed by the information economy. Computers run our lives. Data can be moved rapidly between systems. That could never happen before. So now more than ever before, we have to be on our guard.
In America, it's reported that 85% of internet websites collect personal information from consumers. And there have already been cases of social security numbers, medical details, and unlisted telephone numbers being taken from the internet. They've then been sold on for commercial use by unscrupulous companies.
Next week, the final edition of 3D. We'll be updating some of the memorable stories we've covered. What's happened to Tessie, Ava and Ilonka, 3 young sisters rescued from a Romanian orphanage by a couple from Buckinghamshire. And Hazel Burton, who's fought a lifelong battle with her weight.
We added it up once and I was eating in excess of 9,000 to 11,000 calories a day.
And Ciara Lee, the little girl from Belfast born with incurable liver disease, whose father risked his life to save hers.
The prospect of having major surgery on me is, I feel terrified, but the risk is worth taking.
That's the final edition of 3D next Thursday at 7:30. Until then, good night.
Nick Ridley is on his way to a house of horrors.
Just had a call to say we've got to go to a house where we've been told there's possibly some hundreds of animals inside. This is just unbelievable, it's horrendous. In amongst the animals, there's 4 children living in the house as well. You could smell what it's like. If you can imagine this in a confined space, it really was quite horrendous. I've not seen anything like this before. These things happen, just not too often, fortunately.
Animal Rescuers, 8:30 Monday on ITV.
On 4 Moving People, here in a moment, the boyfriend had better watch out. Bolton's spies are on the prowl.
You really can't afford to miss the first ever UK-wide landmark summit.